A few years ago, the then Pope Benedict XVI gave his annual Christmas address to the Roman Curia. In many ways, it was a standard address of its kind. The Pope thanked a bunch of people, recapped major events of the year, talked about new approaches in evangelism, and basically wished everybody a Merry Christmas. Yet within his very conventional seasonal greeting, he managed to drop a bomb. He noted, while up to now we regard a false understanding of the nature of human freedom as one cause of the crisis of the family, it is now becoming clear that the very notion of what being human really means, is being called into question. Briefly, in his Christmas message, he laid out what he called the anthropological revolution, where people dispute the idea that they have a nature, given by their bodily identity, that serves as a defining element of the human being. He noted that many of today's leading thinkers had rejected the notion that it was God who made humans, male and female. It had always been society that had done so, they alleged. And now, in our liberated age, it was up to the individual to make that decision for him or herself. Within this, Benedict spotted one of the great ironies of our contemporary culture. He wrote, "The manipulation of nature, which we deplore today where our environment is concerned, now becomes man's fundamental choice where he himself is concerned." Think about that for a moment. From now on, there is only the abstract human being who chooses for himself what his nature is to be. For many of us, the changes that we have witnessed in American society over the past few years may be cause for a sense of whiplash. No sooner had the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage than a host of other identity rights issues came to the fore, most notably transgenderism, or the idea that one's gender is separate from one's genital sex. This idea has led to a host of hot-button issues, such as the use of public restrooms, proper pronoun use, military and athletics admissions, and the two of the issues that I mentioned earlier, the Boy Scouts admissions and gender identity on government documents. But along with these very public and social cultural changes, there have been a number of seemingly unrelated, even innocuous transformations that have gone on under the surface, as it were. Not only are we hearing more and more cases, such as the genetic editing of human and pig together that I just mentioned, but technology is seeping into our daily lives at an increasing rate as well. Cell phones, which I've just mentioned, are becoming so much part of our lives, indeed our bodies, that they can be virtually described as what Donna Haraway has called a companion species, which is shifting the boundaries of what it means to be a human. I ask you, genuinely, is it possible to not have a cell phone and be considered a valid person? Looking out at the people who've got cell phones in their hands? Yes. Can you be a human without a cell phone anymore? My contention here tonight, and this is reflected in what Pope Benedict has said, is that these recent developments are not the end of some sort of sequence, but are in fact merely symptomatic and a prelude of bigger things to come. Some aspects of this movement decidedly do have their source in our popular culture of hyper-individualism, where we are told that we can be who and whatever we want to be. Other aspects have a more religious inflection, deriving from new religions, which envision the human not as the image of God set above creation, but as merely a small drop in a larger pool of cosmic consciousness. However, I would assert that the main impetus for what is to come in terms of this redefinition of the human, this move beyond the human, indeed this posthumanism, is largely academic and philosophical in origin. Like many of the most successfully transformative social and cultural movements of recent decades, such as feminism and transgender rights, the intellectual impetus has come from the humanities departments of many of our universities. So this is really a report from the frontline trenches, if you like military metaphors. That's what we're basically looking at. Now, due to the depth and the complexity and the breadth of the subject, I have decided to limit myself to delivering an exploratory and a definitional talk. I am simply going to convey what has gone on, what is going on, and what is likely to go on in the immediate future. How exactly we may begin to address and confront and engage these challenges, whether legally, socially, culturally, religiously, or even academically, I will leave for you to consider. My goal is just to simply spare you further whiplash. As I said, my central topic for consideration is what has been generally called posthumanism. Posthumanism, while unfamiliar to most people, is in fact one of the most rapidly expanding fields of study in the academy. Within the last 3 years, there have been an explosion of international conferences, symposia, articles, and books dedicated to the topic. While its emergence has been sudden, it was built on a number of important philosophical developments that have been taking place since the end of World War II. In large part, we can say that this movement is a response to, even a rejection of that much larger and longer, I would say centuries longer, Western project known as humanism.